So just for those that have seen some of the updates from Pure Salmon, this is probably one of the last slides that you saw. And what I wanted to do was to start here, talk about the progression, talk about some changes we've had to make, and then of course, looking kind of a lens looking into the future, what's critical, and how we'll progress over the next couple of years. So this was the last layout that was published, and this is some general idea of what the landscape looked like back in June of 2021. So I know a few folks had picked up on this. You can see it's one large central building. We did some renderings and tried to make it pretty and presentable. What happened soon after that is, if you wouldn't mind progressing to the next slide, is that we started to do a little bit of soil studying in the area, and even though we had done some conformational borings, we realized very quickly that the current building location was not going to work as it sits. So over the last 6 months, and I really bring this up because I had published a schedule much sooner for permitting, roughly August, September, October timeframe, and I wanted to kind of explain why there's a bit of a delay. That really came down to the fact that there was an area of the site that was completely unusable for the task at hand. So we have spent the last 6 to 8 months reconfiguring to this layout that we see in front of us, and we're progressing with design quite nicely. This will be in the permitting package here due in just a couple weeks, and the county, of course, will be looking at these same basic drawings. There'll be some slight tweaks, but it's basically the same thing. Go for it. On site today, this is a good one. So I would like to share some fun facts about the project because I get a lot of these questions. How big is it? What is the capacity? What's it going to look like? So I figured I'd spend a minute just talking about the project for anybody new, and also just kind of a refresher for anybody that's familiar with it. But it does produce 10,000 tons, and that's TONNES, so it's metric tons, so you can equate that to about 11,000 imperial tons a year of Atlantic salmon, about 10 pounds in size, which is, I don't know, fish maybe this big. And on top of that, we've got roughly, I think the latest estimate was 735,000 square feet fully enclosed. So as you can imagine, we're growing this not in a river, not in an open tank, not in a pond, but actually an enclosed environmental space that has some fairly expensive and strict biosecurity requirements around that, just for fish well-being and whatnot. There is food processing on site, so we actually take the salmon from the egg form. We procure eggs, 25 cents for 1,000, something like that, and we actually grow them all the way through their 22-month lifespan and produce, at the end of the product line, produces a consumable product that you would see in a market, sometimes white labeled for different grocery stores and things like that. That will be frozen product as well as smoked product, and that product is intended to change over time, so you might see different product coming out of the facility as we figure out what the market's like for the U.S. for our product. Along with that, we're hiring over 218 employees. There's about 11 miles of underground piping, believe it or not, underneath of this facility, which adds a lot to the complications. So if you're from a water treatment background, or you've built tanks and buildings and whatnot, the complexity is not so much above grade, but actually below grade in what you don't see. The largest of the tanks, there's roughly 24 of these that are about 80 feet in diameter, and they're about 1 million gallons each. Along with that, that constitutes roughly 30 to 32 million gallons of water on site. We've actually trimmed that down a little bit just for economic reasons by recirculating water a bit more. And consequently, out of that 32 million gallons, every minute, 24/7, there's about 1.5 million gallons getting recirculated. So if you have any history with hatcheries or even the ocean, fishing farms and whatnot, you have fish that's inside a body of water, and the body of water moves. Well, we don't have that luxury here naturally, because we're dealing with a saltwater environment. And instead, we just take the same fish, leave them inside the tank, and just replace the water multiple times every hour. And that's how we're able to clean and actually maintain proper oxygen levels, remove CO2, take care of the denitrification steps and whatnot. If we go back one more. There we go. And we're doing all this actually at a very, very high recycle rate. And this is, I was talking to some gentlemen outside. This is actually one of the world's first in this space. And not only that, this project is leading all of the other pure salmon endeavors out there. This is not the only project for pure salmon. This is the only U.S. one at the time. And we are front running the rest of the countries right now. So we've got Japan, who's right on our heels. We've got France. There's Brunei and a couple others as well. So this is a global design, but we happen to be right here looking at the first one. So we do that with less than 400,000 gallons a day, which, if you consider the amount of water that this facility has, that's an extremely small flow rate from an intake perspective, giving us the ability to actually not need to be next to the ocean to perform the task. Next up is just some general photos of the site today for those who have not seen it. I know that we try to do a little bit of posting on Facebook and whatnot, try to get some public awareness out there. It kind of looks like strip mining for coal a little bit. So we've had to bench basically about an 80-foot section of the hillside for soil remediation purposes. We spent most of the summer doing that. We've now got to go and do some grouting, as you can imagine, if you're familiar with the karst environment in this landscape, apply some wick drains, and then we're gonna start with structural fill and of course a surcharge. This means there's roughly 2.3 million cubic yards of material that we will have moved by the end of this project for sure, maybe a bit more. This valley was about 75 feet deep, and we have completely filled it up. It's a nice little flat pad, but unfortunately it's not structural fill, so we can't use it for buildings or anything like that. I get this a lot. When people come to site, they're like, oh, look at this nice facility, this nice flat pad. This, in fact, is not where the building's set. This is just the wasted material that we've had to put in a valley and fill that. So there's obviously, if you're thinking about, we're taking down a mountain, filling a valley, there's some balancing there. We can't just keep taking the mountain down because then we just create another mountain. So there's a bit of balance, and this is just kind of a nice picture of what it's looked like over the last couple months. These were taken in December, mostly, some in January. We've also crushed, if you go back one more for me, we've also spent quite a bit. Oh, okay, maybe we go forward one more. Okay, that's fine. So we started placing structural fill actually in the cut regions here just a couple months ago, which is pretty exciting because eventually, we stopped taking material out of the hole and we started putting material back, which is a monumental milestone in itself. So we're not having to dig any deeper, and the structural fill was just there to kind of polish off the benching plan, as you can imagine. And each of these lifts are about 10 to 12 feet tall, just to give it perspective. Now we can go to the next one. And then, of course, any rock that we pull out, we end up crushing on site to a 6-inch minus. And of course, we bring in some 10s and 57s and things of that nature as well for construction reasons. We need probably, in the neighborhood of 80 to 90,000 cubic yards of stone to sit below the buildings. So any rock that we have to harvest it on site and repurpose that because it's just not economical to bring it in. Again, just kind of a fun fact of the project, not to get too in the weeds, but the scale of the project is much more visual when you're looking at photos and whatnot. Go for one more. This is the entrance road, so pretty soon on Route 19 as you're going towards, I guess from here you're coming towards the college, right on the right. You're gonna see a nice giant hole open up, a stormwater basin get applied, and that will be our actual entrance, our main entrance. We're still looking at the name of that road. We've got some ideas floating around and things like that, but this is probably a 12 to 1,500 foot road that will be, I believe, state owned at the end of the project. This will be how everybody actually gets into the project when they go see it or visit or work there and whatnot. And this is inside of about a 45 to 60 foot cut, depending on where you stand, through that hillside. So for everybody that drives and commutes down there, you'll hopefully see that open up here in March. That's the idea. As we've had to work basically towards the stormwater basin, get down to the right level, and then we can kind of open it up at the very last minute. So you're gonna see a lot of progress very, very quickly, and it'll be recognizable.
Sir, how long do you expect before you get the new opening?
Opening?
Yeah, you said you're gonna do a main entrance, right?
That's
From 19 over?
from 19. That's roughly March when you'll physically be able to see it.
Yeah, because you guys go right down by my house now.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. We're in a public hearing, so no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Just a quick update on schedule. The immediate task at hand is continuing a lot of this earthwork. As you can imagine, we have a tremendous amount of material still to move. We've moved about 1 million cubic yards to date. I just referenced a $2.3 million number. We've got to get there sooner than later, and that's what we're going to focus on right now. The next one is permitting, which we're going to talk about here in a bit as well, and what the first agenda item was for this specific meeting. It's very critical to our engineering. So like I said, we've had some mitigation steps, you could say, in building placement and design over this last year. We've kind of accomplished that. We have not pushed, to be clear, our start date or our end date. So we're still holding those dates firm, which means two things. Construction has got to happen more things in parallel, as you can imagine. Engineering has to happen a bit more in parallel, as you can imagine, and we've also got to ask and squeeze the permitting process as much as we can as well to maintain that schedule. So that's why I wanted to put this here to make sure it's clear to everybody that things didn't move 6 to 8 months, that was an internal shift, but our deadlines are still the same. We're still looking at the county for the same amount of reviews and approvals for that permitting process. I think the next slide details that just a bit. You know, in talking about the permitting process, you know, I've outlined just some key takeaways, but there's more detail than this, but I wanted to express that, you know, permitting for maybe a government building, I can imagine, would be, you know, the whole thing's engineered, and then you go for permitting. In our life, the way we are today, based on schedule, we've got to be able to say, okay, here's the facility arrangement. While we're polishing off the next set of buildings, we're gonna pass those to you. So it's not gonna be one big package to review at any point in time. We've got to, you know, stagger our foundation, our buildings. The various different buildings will all have different permitting requirements as well, and spread that out over a couple months, of course, and focus on what we can get through right away and get it permitted, and then, of course, start construction here in Q3, roughly July timeframe in 2022. And that gets us about to where we are now. For any questions from the board?
Anyone have any burning questions at this time?
How many, are the buildings all going to be in Tazewell County or Russell County, or a split?
It's a little bit of a split. I will say the majority is in Russell.
Okay, how many buildings do you think will be in Russell?
I would say, looking at that, 8 to 9 total. Maybe 6 to 8. I have to visualize where the line is, and I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Well, I'd like to say one thing. This is going to be a great opportunity for this region. I really am grateful. I mean, this is going to be something that will open the eyes of a lot of people in this rural area of Southwest Virginia. This industry alone is going to have a huge impact, and I am really grateful. I know it's been a process. I understand that, but I will tell you from my perspective, I'm 100% in on this, and whatever it takes. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of good jobs for a lot of good people in this area, and we need jobs terribly bad.
And the one thing I did not touch on, but I did speak to back in December, was the construction jobs alone. So while we might be operating the facility at, you know, let's say 200, 250 people, whatever it be, the construction effort to meet the schedule is between 300 and 500 count, depending on how we decide to break the jobs up. So there's a huge influx of opportunity here over a fairly, you could say, short construction period, but it's still all the way out to 2025, so it's not that short. But there's 2-3 years at least of solid construction on site going, and there's going to be a lot of manpower required just for that.
Any job's an important job, and we need desperately. This is a great agriculture industry facility project, and that's one thing I think we've been in depth in this area in the region of Southwest Virginia is agriculture. You know, that's a big part of this region, and this right here is just going to be like the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
For what you guys are doing, and I'm just telling you again, I'm really grateful that this opportunity is coming to us.
One more thing, if I may, and I'll let you talk, Rebecca, excuse me. Your timeline for construction, because I know that you can't speak, but I can for you. So
Yes.
I need to make sure that all the facility work is taken care of and the permitting and everything is in place, so that when you do get out on Route 19, with everything that's going to happen there, will notification go back to some residents? Will it come to us as a board and we relay that information through social media or whatever means? Or do you notify the residents for blasting purposes or whatever you're doing?
So for the blasting that's happening on site now, it's managed by a subcontractor completely. It's, you know, they own the permitting and everything. The future construction works where you get a lot of different subs, right? And this is really what we're talking about. You know, you have a much more influx of just people, staff, workers, and whatnot. We've talked about doing social media blasts. We can set up a communication line. I don't think that's impractical or impossible to do. We have somebody that can manage that for us. I will say this, you know, when we get into the summer months, you know, like always said on the farm, you gotta make hay while the sun's shining, right? So at the end of the day, we absolutely will be running as many shifts, as many hours a day during the summer, because we can't afford another winter like the last 2 that we've had. I mean, really, that's what's killing us today. So we intend to absolutely use the daylight hours as much as we can. We have to meet the schedule.
Yes, but we'll be able to air communities in that upper end of the county, will, those communities up there and those folks living up there will all know kind of what's going on. So if you're doing anything major,
So,
those communities can know.
I think the best thing to do would take this to an email or offline conversation, and we can talk about what's best for the community. I mean, we don't want to, step on anybody's toes or anything like that. I just
Understand.
want to make sure the expectation's very clear that, when
Yes.
we get started, we intend
But the
to-
question arose, even though it
Yep.
came from the audience, the question
it.
arose. So we're just listening. Thank you.
Very good,
Have you hit any caves or caverns up there yet?
yes.
What do you have to do? What's the process once you do,
The-
once you hit those?
The one that we hit actually will get removed because it was at the upper level, so we're gonna take that soil right off anyway, so that was not really a big risk. Effectively, I'm learning this now because I didn't know before, but when you hit a cavern, we effectively fill it with concrete. And it's not exactly like concrete, it's a low mobility grout, but, you drill down, you might go down 80 feet until you hit, rock, and then you pump at a certain pressure, and as you come up, you just fill the voids in. And there's a strategy where we can do that around certain foundations or high loads like tanks, things of that nature. So it's a risk that we know in the area, and luckily we spent the money doing ERI studies because we happened to just miss the big one that would have cost us a lot of time and money by messing up the borings.
So was the voids, the caves in the road base, or was it at the location of the facility?
It's at the location outside of the facility, but where we had to excavate.
But close enough to the facility?
Well,
Foundation?
again, the one that we hit, that's gonna be removed, because we're gonna
Okay.
dig the entire thing out. It's just, think about it this way, we're cutting down, 40 feet. We found it at like the 20-foot mark.
Because you working with Timmons Group, they're
That's right.
doing the blasting for the 19, and, I know that y'all working with Vdot now and then giving the traveling public notification, then like Ms. Wallace wanted, we also have to give our citizens, they're around adjacent to it, so, for the noise and whatever, and traffic, and, going to school and stuff, we have to stop northbound and southbound 19 when we blast, so, those, community notices and public PR would be very beneficial.
Okay.
And maybe look at the local newspapers, if you know ahead of time, will be the blasting time. If you need our help, we have social medias too,
Yeah.
that we can help you with this too.
I'm sure your social following is probably bigger than ours in this
It
area,
is.
so we need to tap into what your network
Okay.
has. Blasting, in a lot of ways, it'll rain in the morning, so we've got to shift the blasting to the afternoon or vice versa, right? So it's not something that we can give a newspaper 2 days in advance, say, hey, at 9:30 on this day, we'll absolutely be doing this work. So the social media, I think, is the right answer.
And my last question is, right now, and as far as the project, Jonah, from the engineering perspective, this project is on schedule. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, with that, if you can tell us, when do you think you'll start any of the buildings?
So that's the July 2022 date that we just spoke about. So the permitting has to happen after the engineering staff gets done drafting it, we'll send it over for permitting, and as soon as it gets permitted, we start construction.
So they will be drafting the building, making the design of it.
That's right.
And then hopefully they'll start in July.
That's the plan.
Is that the administration building, or that's the first phase?
The first one will be the administration building,
Yep.
soon followed by the hatchery.
And that's why we're proceeding with our inspectors and the jurisdiction agreement for both sides.
Yep.
Okay.
That makes sense. And then as we progress from there, we need to start shifting the order based upon where our engineering is
And we-
being completed.
When the first one starts, we can come in unison, in sync with what y'all are doing.
Okay. Not a problem. Sounds like communication's the trick.
All right.
Okay.
Guys, we thank you. Thank you.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Love to get my
Thank you. And
flash drive
I'm
back.
sorry if you had to travel so far to, give it. But this is the kickoff, the first process. The rest have been site development. Is allowed up there, so they don't know, they have not seen what has been occurring.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. No pressure.
Thank you, guys.
Good.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yes. Yeah, you do want this. I like it.
Okay, if we're ready to move on
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Bob.
to new business, is where we are, yes. Okay, I need approval of the minutes. You guys have seen those, that's in your packet, and we have an A and a B. Now, I have attorney question possibly for the B part. So we did not have a quorum with our meeting that we went to. So how do you want that handled?
You can have a quorum, but, so that meant you couldn't take any action, you can still approve that no action was taken.
Very good. All right. So do you want that separately? We do them separately. Doesn't matter to you?
There's not an objection, you can approve them together. Just a motion to approve the minutes from January 3rd and February 2nd.
Very good. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from January 3rd and February 2nd.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Have a motion?
Second, Madam Chair.
Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to new business number 2, approval of expenditures presented for payment. I need a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion from Mr. Eaton,
Second.
second from Mr. Breeding. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, number 3 in your packet, committee appointments for board consideration. We have the Russell County Planning Commission. Mr. Eaton, you want to work on that one for us?
Well, yeah, Mr. McLaughlin had contacted me and said that he couldn't hold that position on the planning commission, but I do have another candidate, if you may, Madam Chair.
Do you have that candidate ready to present with an application? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, no, that's fine. I didn't get his application in to you on time, but I can wait. I can even hold this out and wait till the next meeting as long as they have enough people in the planning commission to have a quorum.
They have to have been schooled
Yes,
in
they gotta,
planning commission.
even though they come, they still have to have their, to
So
be
that's
able
fine.
to make a
So
motion.
that,
Yeah,
well, I
that's
can
fine.
hold this off until, I'll get his application in.
I don't think we have a burning problem right now on planning commission. I just don't, I want you to be able to get your guy or gal in so they can go to school.
Mr. Eden, whoever you do select, we need to get him in school because the next one starts in March.
Oh, let's do that now.
All right.
Sorry.
I have Mr. Keith Ray. Let me give you a little history of Keith. He's retired as a federal mine inspector. He's now got a degree and he's teaching school at Honaker. So he retired from the federal mine inspector and then went right back to work, and now he's teaching school at Honaker. So he's very qualified. He's got an engineering degree. I think he'd be real suited for the planning commission. So Keith Ray.
Okay, we have a motion for Keith Ray to be taking Mr. McLaughlin's resignation place. I'll need a motion.
I'll make it.
Okay.
Do you need a second? don't-
This is a
we don't
committee
need a second.
appointment, but I guess we do need a second for this, don't we? Yes.
Second.
We got a second from Mr. Breeding. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? We
Thank
had
you,
our
Madam
discussion.
Chair.
You're very welcome. Mr. Lester, I would ask that Mr. Ray be placed on the list to go to planning school.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next we come to citizens' comments period. And at this time, I've got a list, I think, of folks in front of me that would like to talk about this. And I will tell you that I have my timer in hand. You're going to get 3 minutes, okay? All right, the first one is Tommy Austin, that I call Sonny.
If y'all look up in the left-hand corner, this email was sent to everybody on July the 12th, 2021. And I've been waiting since then for an answer.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't get it. Oh, I'm sorry, too, I didn't get it.
Well,
Read your letter to us, Sonny.
All right, my name's Tommy Austin. I'm the chief of the Copper Creek and the Moccasin Volunteer Fire Department. For a few years now, the county has given the Copper Creek Fire Department a full part of the monies allocated for the budget, but only half to the Moccasin Volunteer Fire Department. We have 2 trucks in the Moccasin building and a crew to run calls at that building. Since there is no public water close by, we are in the process of putting in a large tank where we can fill up a truck. Large tank where there is filling it with water. We're gonna fill it with water. Has to have extra water in case of a fire, in case we need it. At this time, we'd like to ask for the full amount for the Moccasin Volunteer Fire Department. And let me say a few things. We drilled 2 wells down there. Both of them blowed out. If any of you knows what a well, as it blows out, it just blows a big hole in the ground. We got one on the upper side of the building and one on the lower side, so that didn't help us. That was $40-some hundred. So now we've come up with the idea, we're gonna get 2 5,000-gallon tanks set in the building for extra water. We're gonna have to heat this water or heat the building. We've gotta buy the tanks, we gotta buy the pumps. The pump's gonna be pretty close to $12,000. Gonna be a lot more upkeep to this building than what we're having now. Which the trucks over there was paid for by the Copper Creek Fire Department. But we furnished them with the trucks for all this time. All I got to say.
Honey, I will apologize to you. I found it in my spam mail.
Well, being spammed.
So you've been spammed.
Okay, well, we're not supposed to have a conversation, and I don't want to break the
I'm
rules.
sorry.
So, I will ask that the Budget Committee look at this and discuss it, okay?
All right.
Thank you. Next, I have on my list, Gary Dotson for public speaking.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chairman and the other board members and guests. My name's Gary Dotson. I live in Castlewood, and I'm here, I guess, about an application I'm gonna submit for the Russell County PSA. I understand there's a possibility to be opening there full-time or part-time or temporary, whatever. But my concern is I hear rumors that the county's not gonna put old board members back on the board. For what reason, I don't know, but anyway, when that present board member term expires or whatever, are you gonna kick that person off the board and just because he's been there, are you gonna reinstate him, or you gonna put a new one on just because of that rumor, if it's so, that no old board members will be placed back on boards? But anyway, I submitted an application today, and I gave it to the chairman, vice chairman, and District 1 supervisor, which I understand that's where the appointment's gonna be made. And I feel like that I'm qualified to do that, and you can look at my application, and you can share my application with the ones that didn't bring a copy to, but the most qualified applicant should receive the appointment, not that he or she has been previously on an old board. But anyway, I gave my application to the appropriate people, and the rest of you can share, but I hope you consider me for that appointment. I have experience on the Castlewood PSA, and I've got other experience, in the coal industry, 38 years in the coal industry, and plus a supervisor and education to back up the qualification. I hope you take those into consideration and consider me for that appointment, because I enjoy being a servant to the county and the community, and I try to do a good job. Appreciate your time.
Next up, we have, Mr. King, BJ King. You got 3 minutes.
I'm just trying to follow up on the noise ordinance. I'll turn it over to Katie, see what she found, if we're still gonna be able to get it done, or if I'm gonna have to go in a different direction to get it done.
No comment, remember? Public comment only.
Gotta remember that.
Yes, you do.
Gotta remember, I'm an old commander. I'm not used to taking orders much. I kinda speak out sometimes, but I do appreciate it. That's all I'm doing is checking. Just don't want it to fall between the cracks. And I apologize for ago talking, like, sometimes I forget I'm not in charge.
Take a seat and hang on, okay?
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you. Okay, next on our public speaking sign-in sheet is, forgive me, Burton Harris? Oh, I got it right. We're ready to listen to you. Come on up, I'll give you 3 minutes.
To make it short and fast, I'm a straight shooter. And I'm an honest man, I'm a godly man. I believe in God. I've always been honest and love people and treat people with great respect. I know my voice might be weak, but I put 53 years in the coal mines. I've got rock dust. And if I lived to the 29th day of August, I was married in a little church out here, it'd be 27 years, not 27, 67 years. I just want to prove to you that I am a man that says I am. And
Use your microphone so
you know,
everybody can hear you, thank you.
The Word of God says, now listen, Becky, you need to listen to this. A good name is better than precious ointment at the day you die. So when you're promised something, it's best to do it. And I've been here in Buchanan County for 15 years. I have been robbed in my real estate for 15 years. It was assessed when I first built my house for 6,700 square feet. I had 4,010 square feet. I paid $2,500, almost $2,500 a year. When I finally got it straightened up, they allowed me back $278.16, I believe it was. But we finally got that straightened up. And then I have asked people to come and look at the property. Our property is not worth, now I'm paying almost $2,800. If land, it's really not hardly, it's pretty well dangerous to walk up on a lot of this. I wish I had, I've got the plat here. I brought a little picture of it here. I don't want to take over my 3 minutes. I want to be right and everything. If y'all want to see this, I'll show it to you. Right here.
Mr. Hurley? Mr. Hurley? You can't hear? Mr. Hurley, I apologize. Your 3 minutes is up, sir. But I will tell you that please work with Mr. Lester and also on the taxes and everything and get this straightened out. There is a system to help you with this. We do have a system in place. So, thank you. Mr. Lester, please get his address, his name. He's got that down here for all of us. Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Greg Hancock. Mr. Hancock is not going to speak tonight? Okay. All right.
I'm not used to much as this. I've always done the right thing. Like
Thank you,
I
Mr.
say,
Hurley. Thank
I
you. We
love my
appreciate it.
Lord.
You can come again and speak your 3 minutes next time if you need to, but Mr. Lester will take care of you, I promise.
You will.
Yes, sir.
You know, you need to lengthen that 3 minutes to about 5,
I got you.
and that will help us all. And people like me, one pays your, you get your payday.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate you. Okay, moving on from our public comments, Mr. Hancock is not going to be speaking tonight, so we're going to move on. Is there any other, did I miss anyone? We've all signed in and everybody's good. All right, so moving on to the constitutional officers' reports and requests. Do I have any? All right. County Attorney reports and requests. Noise ordinance, number 1. Ms. Patton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the last meeting, I presented the board with the revised Albemarle noise ordinance and taking out the zoning, and the board did want to consider that for another month. The one question that I had, and that still remains for me, is there is a section in the noise ordinance that states how the decibel levels are going to be determined, and for Albemarle County, they have zoning, and in their zoning regulations, it defines that, and I had Lonzo, I provided that last time in a hard copy, but I've reprinted it out, and I'll kind of discuss that with you, but the biggest question I have is it's pretty comprehensive on how they determine the sound levels, and I really wasn't sure if this board wanted to go that far in that. I mean, and I will say, just beginning, this board is a legislative body. We enact ordinances. We're not the enforcer. Typically in this situation, it's going to be the sheriff's office doing this, so I don't know if that's something where you want any feedback on the equipment that they have, but I will pass this out. I mean, as far as the ordinance goes, except for this one part, if the board is okay with it, I think it's a good ordinance. I think it addressed the concerns that the board had in the previous ordinance that was considered being vague. I think it's specific. It lets people know what they can and can't do, and it makes it clearer for enforcement. But obviously, that's a board decision. But I will pass this out, and in the Albemarle County ordinance, it references section 418 and is noise, but there's about 5 pages here that encompass that. And in my opinion, just reviewing this, we would not need to, even if the board wanted to adopt the way that they've determined how the sound is going to be measured, I would not think we would need to adopt all 5 pages. If you'll look at section 418.03, which begins on page 1, there it talks about how things are going to, the instrument of measurement, calibration of sound level meter, weather conditions, and that goes on through page 2 to the top of page 3, and there's even a chart that sort of determines on how that sound is gonna be measured. Again, this is really, really comprehensive, and I don't know that, I'm looking for guidance on the board to tell me if you want to, I mean, I think this encompasses everything, but I don't know, again, what kind of tools and, that the sheriff's office is gonna have. So, I do think the ordinance is ready to be passed, but for, how the board wants to proceed with that one definition.
Does anybody or has anybody done any research on the cost or expense of the equipment needed?
Sorry, I'm looking at ambient sound measurement here, and it says you take it, average it over a period of time. So, you know, that's gonna be an issue right off the bat, you know. Because you won't need to measure it until there's a complaint. So, I don't know. Are we required to have another public hearing on this, Katie?
No, I think we had a public hearing on it just to give
We're
the public
good.
notice. Yeah,
So
you
we
don't
just
have
need
to have a public
polish it
hearing.
up. Okay.
And so I do think, I mean, the ordinance as it's written does allow for citizens to go and file a complaint, but for the most part, this is gonna be something the sheriff's office enforces. So, I mean, I really think some guidance from them on what they have available to them and what's gonna be practicable to them, because obviously we're very different from Albemarle County. We don't have the same resources, and so that needs to be taken into consideration for this part of it.
Can we get a response from the sheriff and sheriff's office in regards to the impact of this and what it would do to them and the equipment needed?
Yeah, I think maybe what we ought to do is exactly what David's talking about, is talk to the sheriff's office. Table this until the next meeting. And I hate that worse than anything. We're kicking the can down the road again, but we need to resolve what portion of this measurement procedure we need to take into account and amend does this go in our, county policies? Yeah, okay. So I'll volunteer to talk to the sheriff's office on this, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
I have no problem with that, but I thought we were all ready to move, and then we were going to tweak it as we went, so,
Well, now, I'm not opposed to that, but you know what happens if somebody walks in and says, I've got a complaint? We have no mechanism to measure anything, do we?
we have a gentleman that has come and been very faithful to come and complain, so,
But I don't know how we resolve your issue unless we have some mechanism to determine what is a disturbance. This one says 15 decibels above the ambient level is what it says.
How does the town do it? The town has an ordinance.
I don't have a clue.
I think
that-
mostly it's a common sense thing, you know? If you can't go to sleep at night because your neighbor's blasting rock and
Well,
roll,
The common sense is a matter of perception. He's gonna say it's not common sense, you know. So, well, in your view it is, but in his it's not. You know,
Okay.
we need something
okay.
that's
All right,
kinda black and white.
Thank you. So, Mr. Breeding, are you prepared to get a consensus? Do we need a consensus, or do we need a motion to, it's not really in a motion form, so we can, by consensus, just say, okay, Mr. Breeding has prepared to offer himself as our liaison to go find out about, sound. And he's going to learn all about decibels. And you will come back next month, or before that, what your findings will be, and give it to our attorney. And we'll be prepared to move on this next time.
The only thing I want to kind of just, if you all want to talk about, I know there's not a motion to approve it, but are there any concerns about the other parts of the ordinance as written, just so I could address them? Again, I'm good with that. It was this last piece of how that's defined.
I sort of took a consensus this afternoon, and we were all prepared.
I have
So-
no problem with any of the rest of the ordinance, but we really need some mechanism, or else it's just gonna be like you say, it's gonna be a judgment call, you know?
Well, my recommendation too, Madam Chair, is to let Steve talk to Mayor Doty there with the town of Lebanon and see they might not use a decibel application, it might be by feet.
It's by feet and it's by how many complaints has been on it, or, you know, if they get more than two.
I mean, if it's working for them, ain't no need to reinvent the wheel.
I don't understand why we just didn't adopt the town.
That's correct.
Well, one of my questions is, we've lived without these ordinances all these years, and we do have a few concerned people like yourself, and I know a person, Jim Frank Taylor subdivision has called me several times, music and dogs. But I'm sort of reluctant to, restrict the activity of all the citizens because of a few. I'm wondering if there's some other avenue that we may be able to take care of these that are having problems at present time.
And, and that's like, oh, no, God, that's.
Mr. King,
We're not gonna complain about it.
Mr. King, thank you. We'll work on this one more time. Thank you. Public comment, 3 minutes. You're welcome to come. Thank you. All right, moving on. Let's move on to the Russell County Employee Insurance Retirement Program.
Yes, Madam Chair. I have 3 documents here for the board to consider. The committee worked on this issue of creating an insurance retirement program that's similar to what the schools have. The committee met and discussed the various issues, and I have a proposed policy for you all to adopt, as well as some amendments to be made to the personnel policy that will reflect this program. There's also a resolution for a one-time waiver if the board does decide to adopt this policy to allow anybody whose retirement is less than 90 days from the date of today to be eligible for this program. So the policy is very similar to what the school has. Obviously, we have a different type of employment structure than the school has. So one thing that is different about ours that is specifically accepted is the elected constitutional officers are they are not eligible for participation, nor are any employees that are employed through the county that they're paid solely by grant. They would not be eligible. Also, it requires the constitutional officers to adopt the personnel policy and to keep timesheets, because that's this policy would allow employees to trade sick days at the end to be used as part of their to go towards their health insurance. So because we have not had that system in place, that would be a requirement for the constitutional officers' employees to be eligible for this program.
Yes, and thank you. We put together a committee last month to look into this. So at this time, our committee members to look at this insurance retirement program was Mr. Breeding and Mr. Lovelace. Either one of you all need to speak to this?
No, I'm good with the way it's presented.
Yeah, I think we put together a program that'll be acceptable and it'll be very beneficial to the county and to the employees. And with that, I'll make a motion that we accept all 3 documents that Katie has provided us, which is the ordinance, the policy, the amendment, and the ordinance for a one-time ordinance for a 90-day waiver of that.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, next we're moving on to the ordinance to permit Russell and Tazewell County building inspection officials and Russell and Tazewell County erosion and sediment control inspection officials to mutually perform inspections. This is the public hearing that we heard. So we're ready to move on this, I'm assuming.
Yes, Madam Chair. The ordinance is something that Lonzo and I worked with Tazewell to get, and basically just, I guess the simplified version of this is it basically is Tazewell and Russell County granting each other permission to do building inspection and erosion and sediment control inspections in each other's counties on this joint project is the simplification of what these two agreements stand for. And Lonzo and I have both worked on these agreements and are satisfied with their contents.
Okay, and we just heard the presentation, so, and you guys have this in your packet. We've worked it and reworked it, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept both agreements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, call for the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Katie. Moving on to Jonah interjurisdictional agreement.
I think Mr. Eaton made the motion to approve both of those agreements.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
So,
Then we've got it done. Thank you so much. Moving on to the county administrator reports and request.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First on the county administrator reports is, of course, there was Chairperson Wallace and Board of Supervisors Eaton and Breeding attended the 22 VACO and VML Virginia Rural Caucus and the Local Government Day legislation. And just to give a brief summary of what they had discussed, it was a 3-day meeting of whirlwinds with legislators and agencies, state agencies, grants, water, and of course the PSA was there too. Russell County Chairman of the PSA was there. Just to go into some of the things that we touched on was, of course, we met with the Virginia Department of Transportation concerning a pedestrian bridge and the Dank Depot project. We also met with Delegate Moorfield concerning food tax and potential loss of revenue of the schools. And I'm just touching on some of these as we go through because it's a very comprehensive list. Of course, the county administrator and all the supervisors there met with Delegate Moorfield concerning Project Jonah, which y'all just heard about. Also, the county administrator and the PSA Chairman Porter, we also had meetings with Virginia Resource Authority about some consolidation and refinancing of some rural development loans. And that's what we'll begin working on immediately to save the county some money. Supervisor Wallace, of course, met with the new DEQ director, Rolleban. County administrator and the PSA, again, had discussions with the Washington County administrator about a joint project. Supervisors Breeding Eaton met with Delegate Campbell on a regional waste disposal. Also, the Southwest to develop a meat packing facility, which is agricultural-related projects that would provide alternate crops or products to the local farmers. Supervisor Wallace met with the board meeting of the Virginia Planning Districts and the director of DHCD and the assistant directors. And then Supervisor Eaton and Breeding also discussed the food tax issues with Delegate Tim Anderson and the potential loss of revenue impact to the localities in the school system. And Supervisor Wallace also had meetings with the Cumberland Plateau planning districts with, of course, DHCD concerning broadband, water sewer projects, Dane to St. Paul regional sewer projects, and also the Homeacre revitalization projects. And then also Mr. Eaton, Mr. Breeding spoke with Senator Hackworth on, of course, various county issues and the food tax. So that's a summary. That was a lot to do within a 2-day period. It was from daylight to dark and from meeting to meeting. And everyone that's ever been to Richmond, it's not in one location. You run up the hill, you run down the hill. You run up the hill, you run down the hill. But the point is, the Board of Supervisors and the county staff, we got a lot done. And as you all are hearing, these projects are moving forward. Our grants are moving forward, which you'll hear here soon too, on some of the ones that we were very successful with. Next on the county administrator reports is unfortunately, is Dr. Gregory Brown's resignation from the local college board. He announced last month, his retirement after 30 years of service, and, this will give an opportunity for the board to decide how to proceed with this position. This is a report only, so, that will be on a future agenda. Next on the county administrator request is, now we gotta go to work, is a resolution for, first one is a VDOT resolution for highway system changes resulting from the construction of VDOT project 1056-83 R30 N05. These are VDOT numbers. Now let's get to the real one. Route 1056 Windy Hill Lane. So I need a motion for this new constructed project on Windy Hill Lane.
I'll entertain a motion for the VDOT resolution for the highway system changes.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion from Mr. Eaton. I need a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Ray. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next on the county administrator request is, of course, the Virginia Department of Health and Russell County's annual agreement for funding and services of the Russell County Health Department. This is the annual renewal for our services that is be given by the health department, especially during the pandemic. This is an agreement with a tune of the local funds participation of $369,175. I need a motion for approval.
I'll call for a motion for the VDH and the Russell County Agreement for Funding Services. It's in your packet. You should have already been able to see that.
So moved.
Got a motion from Mr. Breeding. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Second from Mr. Eaton. All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Next on county administrator request is, of course, Robinson, Farmer, and Cox. That is our internal auditors. This is the approval for the Central Services Cost Allocation Plan. It's part of our audit. We do a comprehensive cost plan on all of our services. This is the renewal agreement for June 30th of 2021 through 2023. We do this on an annual base. I need approval for the cost allocation plan renewal.
So
I
moved.
have a question on that. They gave you an option for 3 years?
It's cheaper for 3 years, and
Yeah.
it makes continuity
Yeah.
much better with, yes.
Well,
yes.
you can lock them in for 3 years.
Yes, sir.
at the same
Yes, sir.
price.
I have a
Yes.
motion. I need a second.
Thank you, Mr. Breeden.
I'll make the motion
And
discussion.
For 3 years.
for
All
3
right.
years.
Okay, we have a motion and discussion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lester and Mr. Breeding.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, again, this is a VDOT grant. This is, actually, we signed while we were talking to VDOT about one bridge. They give us a grant on another. So before we got out of the room, I had to sign this one. So this one is a community grant for the depot restoration for a total of $253,904. I need approval for acceptance.
So
And
moved.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Eaton, and I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Breeding. I appreciate that from our community. Any discussion? Hearing none. I'll call for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's it.
That's
Every
right.
day.
Thank you.
Next on the county administrator request is the Department of Criminal Justice, another grant for, and this is through the Brian Justice Assistance Grant Program for the local law enforcement block grant program for $2,492.
So moved.
Got a motion. I need a second. Got a second from Mr. Ray. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lester. You can continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is, on the county administrator request, is the surplus and sale of the Russell County disposal truck. This is the ones that we buy on state contract at a very good price. We have a turnover after 2 years, and we actually either, when we sell them on the open market, especially right now with the cost of vehicles, we will almost make money because we buy under major surplus under the state contracts. So I need a motion to surplus and sell the vehicle that's on the agenda for sale.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Thank you, Ms. Dye. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
they give you a guaranteed minimum price on the
There
old
is a
truck, right?
GMP. We have a contract.
And there's
with-
very little difference between the old guaranteed price, which is a minimum, and the new price. It's like
Act-
20-some
Actually,
thousand.
we made money on our last sale.
I think the last one
And this next one, you'll see how we're doing this.
okay.
Next on the county
I have
ministry.
a motion
Oh, I'm sorry.
and a second. You're
Thank you,
excited.
ma'am.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
you're welcome.
Next on the, is the purchase of a Russell County disposal truck. This is a 2022 Mack Granite, truck, through the National Auto Group, which is our contractor. It has a ticket price of market price on the floor of $226,779, but our contract price, $173,684 under contract.
Need a motion?
So
to-
moved.
That's a $50,000 reduction.
Got a motion to get a disposal truck, by Mr. Eaton. I need a second.
I'll second it. Oh, go ahead, Carl. Go ahead.
I'll take either one, doesn't matter. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. You can buy you a truck and sell
Thank
it
you.
for more than you bought it for.
Yeah.
We're in the wrong
He
business.
has, he's done quite well with that.
And I gotta thank Brian Ferguson for that. He stays right on top of that. Next on the county administrator reports is, of course, this came in this morning, another grant. This is from the, Virginia Department of Energy. This is for the, 2018 program for, the Dayton Community Redevelopment Project in the town of Dayton in Russell County. This is an AML with the features and the land that will create multiple-use trails in and around the Dayton community and ATV trails, which will link into the Spearhead Trails Mountain View Trail System. The total amount of the grant, $269,000.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Got one. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And I'm gonna take, Chair's platform just a minute. We have said $269,000 for the past 3 years, so finally, I hope we're gonna get this money on the ground, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, moving
Yes,
on,
ma'am.
Mr. Lester.
Okay, this is before we proceed to contract. Next, last one on here was a request by the Russell County Sheriff's Department, right before the board meeting. They are asking for approval for the department to donate to the Russell County Combined Search and Rescue Team a 2000 International Horton ambulance that they'll be able to use for their search and rescue operations. I need a approval to donate to the search and rescue.
So moved.
Yeah, go ahead. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam Chair. That concludes the county administrator reports and requests.
Okay, next we have on the agenda board discussion and reminders. I will urge you to keep it brief, thank you, if you will. I'll start with Mr. Lovelace.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a reminder, Lonzo, Coal Road Committee, if we could set that meeting up, I don't have the contact information for all those people, but
That's fine. Vdot has changed on me a couple times. But I will take care of that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Ray.
I have nothing.
Mr. Eaton.
I followed up with Lonzo, I guess, to get an update, or if you'll keep me updated on the buildings up there in Swords Creek, for demolition, to expand that opportunity for our senior citizens to be able to have an area of land there and get rid of those old dilapidated structures. Also, one other thing that was discussed up there in Richmond is the Smart Scale program from Vdot. It's not a very smart program for rural Virginia, I will tell you that, but I've had a lot of deaths occur on Route 80 coming up the hill there, and it's a very dangerous road. And I'm hoping that, and I've talked to our treasurer, Alicia, she is taking a lead on this too, making a lot of phone calls in regards to that road. And I just want to encourage our citizens that if you have the opportunity to email a delegate or a senator in regards, not just coming from the Board of Supervisors, but if you have that ability to email a delegate or senator, and if you need their emails, any roads that are dangerous within our communities needs attention, and it needs to be driven by the citizens. I mean, we absolutely need to contact them and let them know that this Smart Scale program does not work effectively for us here in the rural communities of Southwest Virginia. But that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Eaton. Mr. Breeding?
The only thing I have is, and I'll make it quick, is I think, we've got a project that's been laying around for years and years and years, and that's the animal shelter. And we have a piece of property up there, and I think we need to be digging around and trying to move that project forward, because the last time I talked to anybody at the animal shelter, they had been given notice that we're gonna have to do something pretty quick or we're gonna start getting NOVs. So, isn't that correct, Lonzo?
I lost sound there. Sorry about that. There has been concerns that's been given by the Virginia Department of Animal Control, the state veterinarian, and during the pandemic, they've been very generous to us. Y'all have seen it in your reports, but that's on the condition that we would eventually move on an animal shelter. So they're taking, they know that we have a piece of land available, but they will, they will start looking soon for fulfillment of those obligations.
I guess I'd like to just work with Mr. Lester and see if we can't move that project along a little bit.
I think we've been working on that for a while. Yes,
Forever.
Mr. Breeding. Thank you. All right. Ms. Dye?
No, nothing at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Christian?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. And Lou Wallace? I don't really have anything, but I'm going to tell you, the board book is thick, and you've got your IDA information, your PSA information. Please use that. Please look at that. And I will declare this meeting adjourned.